We all want to be more productive. We want to do more work, earn more money, and have more freedom. But many of us aren't where we want to be, and we don't really feel like we're getting any closer. The absolute biggest thing standing between you staying where you are now and getting the money, fulfillment, and life you want is your habits. Here are the 5 biggest productivity destroying habits I've noticed and how to fix them. Habit number 1 is not managing tasks. Many people feel like they're facing an unending list of to-dos. It feels like you're playing a video game and facing an infinite swarm of enemies. Even when you do manage to defeat one, 2 more pop up in its place and attack you. This makes you feel overwhelmed, unproductive, and frustrated. You get mad at yourself, you blame yourself for being lazy. You want to get better, but you simply don't know how to start making progress. Here's the absolute simplest way to finally take control of your to-do list. First, grab a pen and paper, and then write down all the to-dos you can think of. This creates what's called your long list. Then pick 3 to 7 of the most urgent and most important to-dos on your long list and write them down on another piece of paper. This is what's called your short list. Then when you have time to work, focus only on your short list of priorities. This sounds simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Even just writing your to-dos down will be a huge help, and I'll explain why that works in a moment. Managing your tasks is only half the battle. The next habit to avoid is habit number 2, which is not managing your time. If you're like many people, you've experienced days like this. You wake up, you have a ton of stuff to get done, you sit down at your desk and start working, and all of a sudden, the day is almost over. You look back and you feel like you were busy and you're certainly feeling exhausted now, but you realize you weren't exactly productive. You start beating yourself up for not getting the important things done, and you vow to do better the next day. So you go to bed, get some sleep, you wake up again, and the cycle repeats again. So why does this happen? Well, it's likely because you aren't yet managing your time very well. And the best way to manage your time is by managing your time in advance. Grab your pen and paper again, and then write down all the commitments for tomorrow that you already have. So this is things like calls, going to the gym, going to class, or going to work. Just go ahead and write down all the things you already have planned for tomorrow in order. Then create a few time blocks of 15 to 90 minutes in those open spaces between the other things that you have planned. Then label those time blocks with specific things you want to get done during those times, or you can just label all those blocks with deep work on priority tasks. When you combine this method with the previous method, you wind up with a powerful system for managing both your tasks and your time. Using this system on a daily or weekly basis will make you feel much more in control of both your to-do list and your calendar, and you'll have a lot more clarity on what you should be working on and when you're going to work on it. Of course, you probably found that sticking to your own plan is a lot easier said than done. And that's mainly because of habit number 3, which is getting distracted. We can separate distractions into 2 categories, internal and external. Internal distractions are things happening in your head. Things like questions, ideas, thoughts, fears, and anxieties. The best way to prevent these internal distractions from derailing your productivity is by doing a brain dump about them. Brain dumping is simple. Just grab your pen and paper again and spend a few minutes writing down whatever it is on your mind. Your mind will be clearer, you'll be able to focus better, and you'll be much more productive. Brain dumping is one of my absolute favorite habits to talk about because of the ways it's changed my life and the lives of the people I've worked with. Here's why it's so powerful. Think back to a time where you were stressed about something or you had something on your mind and you went and talked to someone about it. And while you were talking to the person, you suddenly got a new idea to solve the problem you were having. And this happened even if the person you were talking to didn't say anything that was all that helpful about the problem you were experiencing. Well, the reason why this works is when we communicate something to another person or to our brain dump journal, essentially we have to combine those things in new ways, and that can give us new insights, ideas, and solutions. So when you're brain dumping about something on your mind, you're not only clearing your mind because you're putting it from your head onto the paper, but you're also increasing the likelihood that your brain will come up with a solution to the problem that you're facing. For our other category of distractions, we have external distractions, which are, of course, things happening outside of our own head. External distractions are things like people interrupting you, noises in your environment, or your video game consoles, your phone, and other devices that often distract you. The best way to reduce the impact of external distractions is to modify your environment. So in the case of people distracting you, simply ask them, hey, can you let me focus for a bit? Or you can just go work somewhere else like a coffee shop. If your environment is noisy, such as if you're working in an office or a co-working space or a noisy coffee shop, then you can put on noise canceling headphones and listen to instrumental music to block out that surrounding noise. And then in the case of distracting devices, I would recommend putting those away somehow. So if you keep having the urge to play a PS5 that's in your living room, then you could try putting that in a closet until the evening when it's better for you to play it. Or in the case of your phone distracting you, you could try leaving it outside of the room you're currently working in. That way it's out of your sight and more so out of your mind. If you can't do that, then you could at least silence your phone, put it in your bag, or use a social media app blocker like Freedom. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, I'd appreciate if you could take a second to like it. That will boost it in the algorithm and help the video help more people. One of the worst types of distractions, but thankfully the easiest to avoid, is habit number 4, which is multitasking. Multitasking seems like it makes us more efficient. After all, we're focusing on 2 or more things at one time, so doesn't that mean we're more productive? Unfortunately, no. The brain can't really productively focus on more than one thing at one time. Let's say you're playing a video game while you're trying to listen to a Zoom call. Let's call the game Task A and the call Task B. Here's what's actually happening in your brain when you're multitasking like this. Your brain focuses on Task A for a split second, it then switches to Task B for a split second, and then it switches back to Task A, and this process repeats until you're either not playing the game anymore or you leave the Zoom call. This process of your brain switching back and forth between multiple tasks is called context switching. Each context switch costs time and energy. So over the course of, say, a 60-minute Zoom call while you're playing World of Warcraft in the background, you're going to have hundreds or even thousands of context switches. And this adds up to cost you a lot of mental processing time and a lot of energy. To make matters worse, attention is kind of sticky, meaning it doesn't cleanly switch from task A to task B and back and forth. It takes time for our focus to completely return to something after we get distracted. In fact, studies show it can take up to 25 minutes for that to happen. And when you're multitasking, you're essentially constantly distracting yourself from one thing, and therefore you're never reaching full focus on one thing. Multitasking isn't making you more productive. In fact, multitasking is making things take longer and is making things cost more energy. This is another big reason why people have so many busy but unproductive days. The simple solution is to focus on one thing at a time as often as you possibly can. It may seem counterintuitive, but I promise you'll get a lot more done and you'll feel a lot better by single tasking instead of multitasking. Habit number 5 is neglecting self-care. One of the biggest common factors I've found among people who are underperforming, they're putting other things before them. Things like their content creation, their business, their family, their friends, and all this other stuff. It seems noble to make everything and everyone a higher priority than yourself. But when your self-care starts to fall, so too does your ability to take care of everyone and everything you care about. And I know this from personal experience. Back in early 2021, I was working at my full-time engineering career while also building a social media presence, taking care of my consulting clients, and running a weekly Dungeons & Dragons campaign, which, if you don't know, takes a lot of effort. So what happened? Well, I got overwhelmed and I started putting all of those things above myself. And then I started eating more, I started drinking more, I stopped going to the gym as much, I stopped sleeping as much, and I stopped doing things for me that I enjoyed, such as playing video games, reading books, or watching Atlanta sports. I started taking less care of myself so I could take more care of everything and everyone else I cared about. So then what happened? Well, I gained weight, I was chronically fatigued, I got the one and only negative performance review I've ever gotten in my career, and I basically wasn't bringing my best self to any situation. I finally realized I had to start taking better care of myself or the downward spiral would continue and I wouldn't be able to take care of the things and the people I cared about. So if this sounds like you may be wondering how you start taking better care of yourself again. And the key is to start with the fundamentals. So start sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night, eating a nutritious diet, minimizing drug use, including alcohol and stimulants, exercising daily and lifting weights a few times a week, and of course, giving yourself some downtime so you can decompress, recharge, and have some fun in your life. There's a ton of supplements out there now that claim that they can help you with brain fog, energy, and a whole bunch of other issues. But if you're not taking care of those fundamentals I just mentioned, nothing else is going to help you start feeling better. So start with those, get those on point, and then you can start improving from there. If you enjoyed this video, take a second to subscribe for more videos on productivity, creativity, and business. And you can also check out one of my other videos right here.